Well, howdy friends, Brian Flechsig of Mad River Outfitters and the Midwest Fly Fishing Schools, and welcome back to another one of our Q&A videos. As always, friends, we appreciate you being here. We appreciate your questions. If you'd like to have a question answered here on the channel, you can send it over to admin@madriveroutfitters.com. And if we pick your question to be answered here on the channel, we're of course going to send you out a hat and a fly box. And actually, after having said all that, as always, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. That really helps us out. After having said all that, we're going to do something a little different today. And, there's a variety of questions. And we've kind of picked out like the top 10. I'll only do a few here today, but a bunch of questions that we get via email, like 2, 3, 4 times a week, and also we get phone calls on this 2, 3, 4, sometimes more times per week. So it's not any one person that asked this question. These are questions that it seems that a lot of you have. And I thought we'd just kind of pick some of those top questions that we get all the time and address those here in an episode. So here we go. A lot of folks ask that when you get into larger flies, say size 2, size 1/0, 2/0, 3/0, 4/0, 5/0, the math gets a little fuzzy and folks are wondering how to go about matching their tippet to their fly. So let's go back and let's remember that for all intents and purposes, when we're talking about say 0x through say 6x, which is typically trout. All right, let's face it. This is really a trout fisherman's dilemma because once you get into bass, once you get into saltwater contact streamers, you're typically bigger than 0x on your tippet. But let's review the way you figure out what size tippet or what range of tippet you should be using for general trout fishing where you're going to use 0x to 6x tippets is you're going to take the size of the fly. Let's say it's a size 12 fly. You're going to divide by 3 or 4, and that's going to tell you that a size 12 fly requires 3x or 4x tippet. A size 6 fly, divide by 3 or 4, and you're going to be using a 1x or a 2x tippet for your average size 6 fly. Now, of course, a size 12 fly, if it's very light, say a dry fly, you're going to err on the thinner side, remembering that the higher the number of tippet, the thinner it is. If that size 12 fly is heavy, a weighted nymph per se, you might err on the 3x side. And remember that there is no tippet police, so if it's super heavy and you're on 2x, so be it. If it's super light and tiny, or you're dealing with super spooky fish and you're on 5x, so be it. You're probably not going to get arrested. Okay? It's all about the casting. It's all about the presentation. As long as you can deliver the fly to the target and it allows the fly to behave in a lifelike manner, okay? This is just a guideline. But again, once you get into the larger flies, say 1/0, 2/0, big flies, well, it's not as complicated. It becomes much easier. And it also becomes a function of the fly. Yes, you have to be able to turn over the fly with that tippet. But it also becomes a function of the fish. The tippet must survive the fight of the fish. So we also, when you get bigger than 0x and big flies, you start thinking about the fish as well, especially when it comes to saltwater. So for all intents and purposes, friends, let's say if you're a size 2 through 1/0, you're probably going to be okay on, say, 12 thousandths or 14 thousandths. So again, we're off the 0x chart. Let's remember 0x is 11 thousandths. So bigger than 0x on up to say 14 thousandths. But then you have to think about the fish. If it's a really hard fighting fish, you're going to need something even thicker than 14 thousandths. And by the time we get to this point, friends, we're talking about streamers or contact fishing anyway. There's no size 1/0 dry fly, and there's no size 1/0 nib. So we're talking about streamers. You're going to tie it on a non-slip loop knot, which, if you don't know the non-slip loop knot, that's what we use for contact fishing and streamers. There's a link right there, I'm sure. And then let's say you're 2/0 to 3/0 were really big pike flies and stuff. You might be 15 thousandths to 17 thousandths on your tippet. Okay, but again, it must be able to survive the fight of the fish. For example, we just literally a week ago tonight, I just got back from our annual trip to Brazil, peacock bass fishing. And for crying out loud, I mean, those fish are hard fighting. There's all kinds of structure in the water, and there's lots of toothy fish. Piranhas and stuff are constantly chewing up your flies and chewing up your tippet. So we were 26 thousandths on our tippet, which with the material that I was using was 40-pound test. We were literally running 2 part liters, and it was 0.028, which was 50-pound, was the butt section, and then the 40-pound was the tippet. 2 section leaders. Of course, you know, peacock bass, in the jungle, they've never seen a fly before. They don't care about the presentation. You're just lobbing it out there and then retrieving, contact fly fishing. So we were just running 2 part leaders, 50 to 40 or 28 to 26. If we didn't have 40-pound and we hooked into a 15 to say 20-pound peacock bass, they were breaking us off, believe it or not. Of course, when you're fishing for tarpon or snook or barracuda or sharks, you're also going to have some bite tippet or shock tippet. I believe we've done a couple of videos on that as well, and we'll do more. So once you get bigger than 0x or out of that trout realm, you got to think about the fly, but then you also have to think about the fish, okay? And 12 thousandths, 14 thousandths, maybe 15 to 17, and in extreme cases, you're going to have to be up around 26 thousandths or say 40-pound. For tarpon, we might even use 50, 60, or 80-pound bite tippet at the front of our leader to help protect against the sharp gills and such. So hopefully that helps. And hopefully it makes sense for flies bigger than, say, size 2 or 4. You're going to go off that X chart and forget about the math. I was never very good at math anyway. The next question we get a lot is people ask when they're practicing casting, do they need a leader? And absolutely you have to have a leader on when you're practicing. Okay, if you don't have a leader on the end of your fly line, you've got this fat pipe, and all of this energy is coming out of that fat pipe, and it's got nowhere to go. So even when you're practicing, yes, you absolutely have to have a leader on there. It should be tapered. Now, it doesn't have to be perfectly tapered like you're fishing, but it should have some semblance of taper so that the energy is bled off and you get that feel and that look of an actual fly cast. So when you're practicing, otherwise you're going to get this big kick. Okay, it's going to kick over and the tip of the fly line is going to kick downward, and you're not going to have any loop. You're not going to get a good feel for it. So absolutely, you must have a leader on the end of your line in order to practice your fly casting, which, as we've told you, you've got to practice your casting. You have to practice, and then you have to practice some more. You know, I do this for a living, and I practice casting most every day of my life when possible, except when it's 9 degrees outside. But then I can use the TFO office rod and practice indoors. Stay tuned on that. Last but not least, we've been getting this question a lot. And the question is, what is the relation between a fly size and a fly rod? Okay, a lot of folks have been asking, well, on a 4-weight rod, what size flies can I throw on a 4-weight? And they're asking, what is the range? of flies. And you know, friends, I really don't think that can be answered, or at least it can't be answered well. And here's why, is that there's just way too many variables. Just way too many variables for me to say, or anybody to say, well, a size 4 fly rod is going to be good for size 6 to size 18 fly. Well, you can, you know, there's just too many variables. You can't say that because, I mean, what's the rod? What rod is it? That's going to make a big difference. What line is it? Well, that's going to make a big difference. You know, how, if we were to try to determine the size, well, how heavy is the fly? How wind resistant is the fly? And then several other questions, but then the big one is your casting ability. If you're not a very good fly caster, well, this is going to be a very limited range. If you're a good fly caster, you might be able to throw a huge variety of different sizes and weights of flies on a 4-weight rod. So I think 2 answers. I think, and bear with me, I hope this makes sense. I think go back and watch our episode, I think it's episode 3 or 4 of Getting Started in Fly Fishing. We'll put up a link there where we talk about the different weights of rods, like a 1, 2, and 3 weight's good for panfish or for trout, 4, 5, 6 kind of all around, and for the different fish that you would fish for. And then I think, I mean, trout flies are trout flies, bass flies are kind of bass flies. They're going to be a little bit bigger. Saltwater flies are going to be saltwater flies. I think that's the way to think of it. It's more, you know, if you've got a 6-weight and you're using it for smallmouth and you bought it for smallmouth because that's what was recommended by, say, a fly shop like Mad River Outfitters, well, then you're going to assume that it's probably pretty good for most, if not all, smallmouth flies. And then the second answer is that you're going to have to figure this out on your own. Based on, again, rod, what line do you have? How heavy is it? Is it a floating line? Is it a sinking line? How wind resistant is the fly? What's your casting ability? And you're going to find your own parameters. But I don't think myself, anybody that works for Mad River Outfitters, or really anybody can tell you cut and dried that a size 4 fly rod is going to be for size 6 through size 14 flies only, and you can't throw a 16 and you can't throw a size 4. Just too many variables. So I would say think more in terms of the types of the type of fish that you're fishing for, and those flies are going to fit that rod, assuming that the rod is proper for that type of fishing. And then number 2, you're just going to have to play around with it, friends, and find out what your limitations are, and find your own parameters based on, again, that particular rod, that particular line, those particular types of flies, and your casting ability. So that's a question that we get 3 to 4 times a week. I always try to answer it. Those of you that email Mad River Outfitters know that every single email gets a response. Some of them get read on the YouTube channel, but regardless, every single email, every single question gets answered here at Mad River Outfitters, which is why I don't sleep much. But happy to do it because it's all about you. We wouldn't be here without you. So again, friends, thanks as always for watching. Be sure to subscribe to our channel. That really helps us out. Hit the like button. That makes us feel good. And again, any questions, send them over to admin@madriveroutfitters.com, or better yet, pick up the phone. We love to talk to you, our customers. Pick up the phone and give us a call. That's what we're here for. Customer service is what we do for a living. Fly fishing is what we love and what we sell. So appreciate you watching, friends. Be sure to watch this video and that video, but watch them all. We'd like to think that they'll help you out or give you a good laugh or teach you something along the way, or at least be a little bit entertaining. So thanks as always for watching, and stay tuned because we've got a lot more coming out.